This month's Artist Spotlight found his passion for wood turning by looking up videos on YouTube. Derek Stafford was born and raised in Polk County and has always loved creating things with his hands. He works on his creations every day and has turned a relaxing and meditative hobby into a very successful side business. Here's a look at the functional, elegant artwork of Derek Stafford.
My name is Derek Stafford. I'm a wood turner and watercolor artist. I have done watercolor for many years, and until probably the last year or so, I've recently got into actually wood turning and woodwork crafts. So originally I was watching YouTube and watching these guys with lathes and making these cool bowls and projects out of scrap wood they've had around the house, and I thought, this is probably something I could do. So really it started with me being on YouTube watching videos, and so I found a lathe and did a lot of research, and really just kind of started from scratch, watching videos and watching other people and asking a lot of questions. And so eventually you kind of get the hang of it after you start doing it, and through trial and error I was able to kind of master the craft, I guess, after about a year or so. I've welded in the past, and I've done metal work with certain projects, and I found that I really enjoyed doing things with my hand and creating. So I think this was a pretty cool transition, going from metalworking to woodworking, using the lathe, certain tools. But I think I've always enjoyed doing things with my hands and creating. So I think this was probably the next step in challenging myself to see what I was capable of doing. Generally, I like to do pieces that are functional. So certain types of woods you can use if it's sealed correctly for food, make it food safe. Other things are decorative piece, like if you have a certain piece of wood that has really great markings. Sometimes just a bowl can be used as a centerpiece, and people will use it just as that, or a catch-all bowl that you can throw things in. So those kind of things are kind of what I look for, things that have unique patterns in the wood. I use the lumber mill here in town. They have a great selection of different type of foreign woods, exotic woods, woods that have been dried already and they're ready to be turned. I also have several people that are in the tree service business for cedar and some of the other woods that are sometimes hard to find. And so whenever they have a new load, they call me and send me pictures, and I'm able to see if it's a type of wood I'd like to use for projects. So when I first start a project, I look at the wood markings and I see, how can I accentuate a certain part of the wood? And so I don't really go into a certain project with an outcome in mind. I kind of let the wood tell me what it's going to be. So a lot of times I'll go into a project and start turning, not knowing what the final design will look like. But as I work with it and see the different markings, it kind of takes shape, and ultimately it turns out what it's supposed to be. So I never really go into a project with kind of the end result in mind. I kind of let the wood help me determine what it's going to be. Anytime you start a new project or a new trade, you definitely have some hurdles, learning curves. And for me, I like to be able to be efficient right away, but it takes a lot of patience because the wood sometimes has a mind of its own, and I've broken a lot of pieces, and I've learned certain ways to use the tools so that wood doesn't break, certain thicknesses that you have to have. So you really have to be careful and patient, and that's one thing that I've learned is patience. You have to be really patient when you're working with wood. So ultimately, if you want to start woodworking and start wood turning, the best thing to do is to get a lathe. And there are many different types of lathes, but a small lathe, and you'll need chisels, ultimately to start with. And that's all I started with. And that requires wood, sandpaper, a lathe, and chisels. And then from there, the more experience you get, obviously you're going to find that you're going to need to upgrade to a bigger lathe for bigger projects. You know, the big thing I do is look at other people who are like on Instagram and other websites where they have been doing it for many, many years. I've obviously only been doing it for about a year, so the workmanship on some of these are, you know, outstanding. And I don't think I'm at that level yet, but I'm inspired to see what people can do all over the world, woodworkers, and it makes me want to push myself to see what my limits are. And so really watching other people on Instagram and YouTube and these things is really what drives me to get better. I didn't know how I would like doing it once I first started, but the more I do it and the more I push myself, the more of a drive I have to do it. And it really is a stress relief for me after a long day. Going out there and working on the wood, I can kind of forget about everything, and it really is a form of meditation for me at this point. So it's been very helpful and therapeutic for me. Well, this has turned in really to not just a hobby, but a business for me. The more I started making these projects, people would reach out to me on Facebook and Instagram, and they'd want something done, or they'd find something that they'd want me to make for them that they'd seen on Pinterest. And so the more of these I was doing, the more I realized that, you know, this really could be kind of a side business for me. So at that point I had made up to probably 120 different pieces, and I had pictures of everything, so I decided to go ahead and make a website and showcase everything on my website and start the business, Designs by Derek. And so now through Facebook and Instagram and my website, people are able to go on there, see what they like, and then request a piece directly. So every day I try to do something on the lathe, whether it's a small project or if it's a continuation of a project I'd start, you know, a day before. So every day I like to spend a couple hours at night, and usually on the weekends, filling orders and scoping out new wood projects. And so every day I'm trying to do something. You know, Polk County has really grown in the last 10 years. And I've been here, I've born and raised here. So over the last several years, I've noticed an increase in the art scene, especially with the Mayfair and other crafts and craft shows that they have, not just here, but in Tampa and Orlando. And Polk County is really kind of stepping it up with these type of shows that support the local artists. And it's a great time to be in this particular field, because there's many ways to showcase your work throughout town. I think it's important to support the local artist and buy local, because there are a lot of great artists right here in Lakeland, and they don't have to look very far to find a unique piece built right in their own backyard. So.
To keep up with the artwork of Derek Stafford and to order your own custom piece, visit www.designsbyderek.com.